welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So what we're going to look at quickly in this video is what's going on with Champions Ascension. So this is the game from Jam City. NFTs are live on the Ethereum blockchain, been alive since sort of end of February. And here we see some of the gameplay, the PvP gameplay, or it could be PvE, I suppose, but this happens to be PvP. So these are, these are the NFTs. So there's different sort of types of NFT, different sort of races, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff which we'll sort of quickly look at. So you can see here, there's different sort of attacks going on here. It's probably difficult to see, but this is like a demo version, so it's actually showing you what the damage is that's going on there, and it's sort of giving you some idea about what the moves are. So there's sort of you basically get some idea of the sort of the complexity of what's going on here. So it looks pretty simple, and obviously you could make these sort of games very simple, but actually there's a sort of quite an interesting design situation going on here, where you have the different characters are here. You can see a bit more, where you can see the sort of combinations, the attributes of these different what makes up these NFTs. So the NFTs have sort of, as I say, a race, and the races have different moves, and also we have a few other things. So let's just quickly go and have a look at what's going on there. So I'm going to switch over now to this is the sort of the white paper for the combat, which is sort of what we just saw there. I'm not going to go through it in enormous detail because it is fairly in depth, but you can sort of obviously put the link in. You can go and have a look. So it said this game's sort of in development, and is a one of these sort of blockchain games that has a very long, I think, sort of progression, a long roadmap. So there's some land stuff going in there. There's also pets, sort of companion animals going in there as well, and they have this sort of very long idea about how this sort of game is going to sort of progress through. But this is just obviously focusing on the very sort of sharp end, so to speak, of the combat. So as they're saying here, there are sort of four major elements. So there's the weapons. So each so there are sort of external from the NFT characters. There are weapons. There are parts. So the parts are the parts of the NFT character themselves. There's essences, and there's family, which is basically sort of the race. So it says in this sort of a discussion, they're focusing mainly on sort of weapons and family. But we can go in and sort of get an idea. So there's sort of weapons here. So there's sort of shields and weapons, and obviously if you have some of these ones need two hands. If you have a shield, you can use a sword. Blah blah blah. That sort of thing's going on here. There's the actual races. So there's a whole bunch here. I guess this is the best known, or sort of these sort of rhino ones with these big horns. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Sort of as we'll see, there's different effectively sort of element, and there's like an elemental system that works in different ways. So there's that stuff going on, and families have stuff like speed, maneuverability, health, defense, damage. The weapons are different, and special buffs. Obviously, there's an essence thing here, which is basically a sort of fury, so that sort of builds up and allows you to do super attacks. And that's it's effectively a rock, paper, scissors. So each champion is at a slight advantage or disadvantage to a champion of a different house. That's pretty something you'd expect in these sort of games. Champions have different active parts. So wings, horns, fangs, war paint, passive ability, claws, and tail. So all the characters have those, which is sort of why it's sort of a restriction in a way in terms of the design, but equally it's a sort of a way of adding another sort of a strategic level into what goes on here, because actually you're attacking with these different elements, or you can attack these different elements. So now this is another interesting thing here, and I think they're doing this because they're very focused on this is a fun game, and this is like a game. It's got NFTs in it, but this really is a game. So they're actually showing here the control is using a controller. So I'm not suggesting that they're going to demand you use a controller, because that would be a bit odd. I'm sure you can use a keyboard as well, but it's interesting that they're at least sort of showing that this can be, or that they're sort of suggesting the best way to play this game is using a game controller. That gives you an idea about sort of how they're sort of focused on the gameplay side of things. So it's talking about sort of cameras and moving and sort of guard modes and stuff. Attacking with weapons, so there's a heavy and a light attack. Again, we sort of expect that, and again, it has the typical things you'd expect in a sort of combat game, where light attacks are quicker but don't have the same damage, whereas heavy attacks, you sort of wind them up and you can be attacked while you're sort of winding up. There's also a sort of post-attack sort of a recovery mode as well. So here we go. So we have the wind up, the active attack, and then recovery, and there's different ways again into a sort of a rock paper scissors thing, different ways of you can use these in different ways, or the opponent can take advantage of them in different ways. So if you're doing a wind up and then you're attacked during that wind up, you don't get to do the attack, but you can do a wind up and do a block and a dodge, and then you're not doing the attack, you're sort of pretending to do a bit of attack, and then you're sort of moving out of the way, and then maybe you do the attack. So there's that, and the recovery as well. So if you're hit during a recovery, you can cannot be interrupted or cancelled. So recovery is a particularly sort of important time of it. Yeah, light and heavy, stun move, there's dashes. Each family has a maximum number of dashes and recharge timer. So a big heavy one can dash twice. Maybe other ones will be a bit faster. Blocking, again showing the controllers here. Blocking and parry, but parry is more timing. There is a block breaker which cannot be blocked, and in this one you're not locked in, you're having a free mode and executing a single heavy attack while running, so that's harder to pull off, but that's the sort of, with all these things, it's a risk reward sort of thing going on here. Yeah, what happens if both people do block breakers at the same time, and then you sort of have to rapidly bash buttons if you have to mash your buttons. I'm not going for the faint knockdowns, but you can see it's quite detailed. Certainly when I was first was looking at this game, I didn't think there's going to be this sort of level of detail in terms of how the combat works. It seemed much more like, rock, paper, scissors, you sort of get on with it. So there is actually, obviously it's not, I wouldn't say it's a Street Fighter type sort of beat 'em up game, but it compared to certainly any other blockchain game I've seen, this has lots of layers of depth in it, and you're not just buying the best NFT and winning. You're having the certain character, and then if people know, well, he's using that character, that's going to move in certain ways. This is how I would move to counter it. So there's that sort of definite skill element in there. So this guy here doing a double-handed hammer. He's got a light. He's got a sort of double light attack. He's got a heavy attack. He's got a heavy attack. He's got a whatever, a combo attack, a claw light heavy attack. He's got a light whatever that one is, the tail. He's got a light tail heavy attack, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to go through and say all this. There's an execution at the end. So it's interesting where, it's quite interesting when blockchain games companies are building these sort of games, and they say stuff like details of this are to be determined. So there is an element where some of these NFTs can actually have permadeath. So the NFTs that are currently there can't be killed because they're called the what do they call them now? The sort of prime eternals, I think they call them, and they have a higher status because people have bought those at a higher price. So those ones can't be killed, but other ones, potentially there is the risk that you will actually lose your character and it will be killed. Again, if you're sort of careful for that kind of stuff, but again, it's a sort of, again, a risk reward type thing. Here's the controllers, house advantages, so we can see there's 7 different houses and how they sort of work over each other. I'm not going through all that. I'm going through this faster and faster. Different parts, and these, as we can see, can do different attacks as well. So you might be doing attacks with those. So a life tail attack provides an attack that deals life damage and gives the champion 1 dash charge. So you can do that attack with your tail with this particular character, and then you also get a dash. And there's different things. So you can see there's a lot of moving parts on this, and this is like the design doc when the thing's actually live and people are actually playing these. Again, these things might obviously change and get nerfed and buffed as demanded or as required to make it a good game. So we have this divinity. So this is sort of a key mechanic in how expensive these things are. There's up to 5 divinity rankings. So most of the things have no divinity, and very few of them, I think like less than 10, have 5. But that gives you, again, it doesn't give you, it gives you a bit more. Very hard to read here, but for the common ones, it says this deals 20 damage, and for a divine one, this deals 27 damage. So it's pretty heavy. So that's an advantage, but not a massive advantage. It's not the change isn't from 20 to 40 or so to speak. It's also purity. So purity is related to the parts. So you have a divinity, which is the overall NFT character, and then you have the purity. They have also I had a quick look. I couldn't see there were any that were 5 purity, because obviously these NFTs were generated randomly. But the more parts that have the same sort of underlying what they're saying, essence, as the underlying character, if you see what I mean, then they get sort of better moves as well. And here's an example champion. So here we see that's the family, and we see the attributes that deal with that. So has longer dash, extra damage, chance to stun. This is its core essence, is life. This actually one here has it's a two-part, two of its 5 parts are divine, and 3 of its 5 parts are pure. So the tail, tail, horns and wings look like divine. Oh no, so the tail, the fangs. Oh, that's the divinity. The essence is life. Yeah, so the tail, the horns, and the wings are life. So that's a life core essence. So that's why it's got 3 parts pure. And then this is what its fury attack does, and this is, you can see, its weapon has these damage components depending on how you do it. So if you do the massive attack, if you do the light hammer, you get yeah, it's enormous. That's like more than 3 times more powerful than the light attack. So sort of interesting. As I say, I think these things will change, but I think it just goes to show with Champions Ascension that they are really building up, you know, very heavily on you know, making it to be a proper game, but also doing it in the open. So, you know, I've never really seen a game in development where people put out this amount of information about what's going on. And obviously the reason they're doing that is because people are now sort of trading these assets, and you want people to understand why some assets will be worth more than others, and it will be coming down to these sort of attributes and how that's going to play into the game. Obviously, you know, they need to find a way to make a good game that also provides sort of, you know, appropriate value for the most valuable NFTs. So it's quite, you know, actually the more you look into it, I'm sure it's a pretty, you know, more complex task than people might think at first look, and that's why these games sort of are taking longer to make. Hopefully, you know, the whole point of doing this is people who own these assets are going to understand, you know, one, maybe they should keep that asset or sell that asset and buy another one, depending on their play style, but equally, you know, you're building with the community, and the community is owning some of these things, and it's a much more open way of building a game than you know, previously, where the game developer just sort of came up with all the ideas and people played it or didn't. So that's the sort of what we want to see with blockchain games. You know, it makes it much harder. I'm sure some blockchain games will sort of fail on that basis, that they won't be able to sort of manage to bridge the gameplay and the blockchain sort of elements that they need to do. That's really difficult. No one's really done it before. So I'd say good luck to Jam City, really, for trying to do this. And we're looking forward to getting the first sort of, you know, testing of this. I guess with all these sort of things, there'll be a sort of some sort of alpha that probably won't be linked into sort of some of the deeper progression that they expect in the final game, but just to get people playing it, and that'll be interesting to see. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and see you again soon.